Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, what is sensorality? So my rights continue to be violated profoundly and extensively to the point where I am seeking asylum outside of the United States. To my estate, prioritize legal and lawful punishment of all American industry, of all American academics, above and beyond everything else. And so I continue to be deprived of all quality of life, and I continue to put that at the forefront of everything because it's destroyed my entire life quality. Again, I've never had life quality. It's destroyed all of my property, and it continues to disrupt my direct, immediate workflow, which has, again, just the absolute complete destruction of my capacity. So we continue going through our derivation. At this point, again, we've proven and derived so much that, again, why somebody can't pay me a little bit of money to eat properly and sleep properly and do my work is profoundly and extensively disgusting. No one cares. And so, again, what is the quality of a sensor? That is, what is sensorality? Looking to have some linguistic construction, word form, sentence structure, where we can show the direct iteration to give us the definition of how a sensor is naturally defined. Fluency is influential, fluent is fluent, it is what it is. There is some unique amount of differentiation of it is what it is to give sensor its unique meaning. That is where we are looking to arrive at. Overall, this derivation process will continue. It's been going on my entire life, and no one cares. So the law is violated, and all of our hardworking Americans continue to lie, cheat, and steal because that's all they're good for. But moving along. What is potency to density, right? Potential is a form of potency. Is dying ugly? Emphasizing the linguistic progression. What is lying to dying? Again, directly one L, one D, and then the word ying, or again, this fundamental syllable ing with consonants, but it's conceptualized somewhere, yin, yang, so on and so forth. What is cyclicity to synchronicity? What is synchronicity to dichotomy? Is dichotomy chronic? Again, chronic is a form of synchronicity, but really, I'm presenting the derivation in order, but we arrive at kind of a novel definition for what is rhythm, or what is a rhythm in this section of derivation. And so, but again, where are we at with our working definitions of vibration in rhythm? Kind of revisiting kind of a major thing we've either asserted or just been functioning on up until this point. And so, right, vibration, a cycle that does not do work, rhythm, a cycle that does do work. The cyclicity, the cycling part, comes from the are cycles circular, but all of your movement is circular, right? It is an effective, it is an orbit. I was going to say effectively an orbit, but it is an orbit. And you can't, just because the word cycle, again, to me, brings forth directly circularity, which is really a statement of geometry. But to our fundamental physical definitions of what is motion, how do we describe motion, rhythm, vibration? Are they actually inverses? Because that's what we've said. And then more mathematically and logically, what is an inverse? Because vibration, a cycle that does not do work. The word cycle, again, really coming from the geometry. All motion is circular. All motion is cyclic. And so, all right, we have stabilized dynamics. Dynamics are cyclic. But vibration, a cycle that does not do work. Rhythm, a cycle that does do work, and then work requires movement, so vibration is not movement. And so vibration is not movement, vibration is the limit of movement. So again, everything is moving, right? All of the atoms in my body, they're moving in relation to one another, but not outside of the system, right? You wouldn't say my hand is moving, but if you had a microscope and you could see the different little independent discrete charge particles creating mass even, you can see that, you can see the movement. And so when we have these concepts of vibration and rhythm, again, when all things are moving and where vibration comes from, the empirical thing, what is a vibration, is the limit of movement, right? Everything is moving, you try to limit that, you form a vibration. And so, again, that's where our conceptualization is at currently. Vibration is the limit of movement. Work requires movement. So vibration does not do work. Vibration does not work. More of like the conceptual, oh, this does not work. Vibration does not work. Vibration is not energetic. Energy, movement, potential. Vibration doesn't have the potential to move. It is not movement. Vibration is not energetic. Which physically that might strike you as a little sound kind of goofy, or you see something vibrating that looks energetic. But it's another one of these direct logical chronology assignments that's directly wrong. Potential energy, no, energy is energy, potential is potential, energy is movement potential. And then throughout history, that's why you have potential energy. Then you have this dichotomy representation, kinetic energy versus potential energy, when what you're describing is momentum, right? Mass times velocity. But vibration is not energetic, well defined in what would be called mathematics. Again, the representation of the physical things, but your intuition is going to strike you, that would strike you as strange, right? You would see things vibrating and say it's like there's a lot of energy, right? Good vibes, energy, but a step worth pointing out. Vibration has no movement potential. Vibration has no potential. So that's one of those chopping down, deriving a step from a previous step. But, right, potential is well defined. I'd say one of the best, most well-defined things in fundamental physics. What is a cycle? Vibration and rhythm, I just have those in parentheses, emphasizing, again, the geometry. That's really where cycling comes from, or at least on a personal level. It's worth pointing out, directly tied to what is a cycle, some sort of circular motion. Everything is in orbit. And then a cycle is a revolution. And a revolution, I just immediately think of a car wheel, RPMs, but are you coming back to like the same spatial coordinate? And so that intuition is heavily there for, again, what is a cycle? And then because of chronology, because everything changes, you can't actually come back to the same spatial coordinate. And again, mass creates where the things are. Space is no thing. So spatial coordinates doesn't even really make sense. Again, mass is the thing that in relation to other things, you get displacement, you get distance, you get velocity. That's where everything is relative. But vibration has no potential. What is a cycle? Sensorality is cyclality. Just emphasizing that generalization, dropping the E, adding ality, kind of an interesting phonetic. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is velocity to viscosity? So this is, again, emphasizing, I already said it, but just are rhythm and vibration inverses? Is not movement the inverse of movement? Again, just that's kind of, again, heavily where my intuition's at writing this. What is velocity to viscosity? Velocity, rapid movement. Viscosity, we now get a natural definition. What is rapid movement to movement resistance? Viscosity is movement resistance. Energy is movement potential. And so what is viscosity to energy? Again, then we just restate the fundamental theorem of physics. Sensorality is resistance potential. Natural definition, direct iteration. And it is, right? What is censorship? Resistance potential. Bam, right? So we've calculated directly, immediately, the direct physical definition of what sensorality is, and it already lines up with your intuition. But emphasizing there the big, again, we've already established rigorously what energy is. Viscosity, this was a progression conceptually, movement resistance. And then, again, geometrically, the difference between movement resistance and movement potential. Then we just renormalize logically, sensorality is, and how convenient it makes sense. Censorship is resistance potential. Sensorality is resistance potential. Vibration has no velocity. What is vibration to viscosity? Right? Vibration has no movement. Viscosity is movement resistance. What's the relationship? Can you have resistance potential, which is that's the sensorality though. Just moving along. What is vibration to viscosity? What is vibration to movement resistance? Just directly expanding using our definition. Yeah. Does vibration resist movement? Doesn't really make any sense. Again, based on our definitions, vibration is not movement. So does it resist movement? Just kind of a trivial step. And again, all of these questions, again, what I'm showing you is you can progress syllable by syllable. Again, if you can do what I can do, which apparently nobody can, but if you could, like you calculate the right answers, you have to. Like there is no other logical structure that exists. And so you literally brute force calculate the entire logical structure that exists to describe anything. And then unless the entire conceptualization paired to the linguistic structure we have today changes, it has to be the right next answer. Nifty stuff. But yeah, and I just have, yeah, does vibration resist movements? Kind of just like a trivial step. But again, overall, what I'm really asking or conceptualizing here is what is an inverse? Because certainly up until this point, we've been saying, you know, rhythm and vibration are inverses, but vibration is not movement. And so what would be the inverse of rhythm if rhythm is movement or regulates movement or optimizes movement, right? It limits inefficiency, it maximizes efficiency. You try to do anything most efficiently, you form a rhythm, as empirically evidenced by everyone blurting out the word rhythm. And now this progresses to a direct definition completely contained by this derivation, which is kind of like the last step, but we'll save that to, again, present the derivation in order. But here we're asking, you know, what is a rhythm? What is the inverse? What is the relationship of rhythm and vibration if vibration is not movement, right? The inverse to me is, again, two sides of the same coin, energy and entropy, movement potential versus resistance to movement. But still, we're just ultimately finding some fundamental differentiation and stabilized definition. Again, our big inverses at this point, energy, entropy, viscosity, and velocity. And so, and again, those are linguistic and physically consistent. So just refreshing where all of our physical definitions are at, and viscosity being movement resistance is a new conceptual progress. Well, all of this is conceptual progress, but again, truly the physical definitions work out by this, again, natural progression of linguistics, but just calling them out whenever it feels relevant. What is an inverse? What is dichotomy to inversion? All right, what is love to hate? Are the two sides of the same coin is always the conceptual logic that I come back to an inverse. It's the same thing but described in the opposite way. Or the electron and the proton are inverses physically, directly. That's our fundamental thing that is inverse. Both are charged, but they're opposite. And again, does positive and negative make sense there? Still, again, not spending time on the conceptual because that's already completely resolved. But what is dichotomy to inversion? Rhythm maximizes velocity. Rhythm maximizes rapid movement. Rhythm maximizes movement. Displacement changes position. Movement changes position. Right? What is movement? A change in distance or a change in location, a change in position. Movement displaces. And so that's always, again, the big conceptual word that I go from. Movement is displacement, a change in position. Mass is the thing that gets displaced. Right? Mass displaces. Sensorality is mass movement. Right? It kind of has a more like slang feel to it, but it's directly literal. Mass moves, sensorality is mass movement. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is displacement to ordinality? Ordinality is placement, first, second, third, fourth. Everything that ends in th generalizes to thing. We've completely categorized and completed ordinality, part 260. Now we're on part like 450 something. But what is displacement to ordinality? What is the order of displacement? What is vibration to speed? Again, velocity, rapid movement, speed, another word for change of position over time, but we have this conceptualization of velocity, and then in math class we have this differentiation. Velocity is a vector, but what is vibration, not movement, to speed? Displacement is discrete, dichotomy is discrete. Are cycles circular? Sensorality is cycularity. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, we touched on that we already talked about that. Are cycles spherical? Sensorality is a special cycle. Natural definition, direct iteration. Another one of my favorites, sensorality is an agentic supercycle. Right? We go from our logical, more general, a special cycle. What special cycle do you say, Brad? It's the agentic supercycle. Again, just progressing our definition until it's definite. Sensorality advances. Sensorality is advancement. What is advancement to placement? Advancement is progress. What is advance to advice? Does positive advance? Is an advance an advantage? That's now it's short-term credit. I don't know. No, no, it's not. Sensorality is comparative advantage, right? And that's just like a chunk of logic. Advantage, now we just use consensus consolidation. A comparative advantage. What is comparison to equation? Composition is composite. Natural definition. What is consistency to composition? What is composition to competition? Is comparison competitive? What is competitive to repetitive? Right, Professor Teao, you're the great math quiz wizard. We want to compete in math. My great colleague, where do you want to jump in here, Terrence? All of these steps are unique and independent of me, and if you can follow along, I mean, each time we say natural definition, direct iteration, we're starting over. And so, yeah, you guys wanted to compete, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Here's the complete logical structure of everything. Can I have some money yet? Nope. Okie dokie. What is competitive to repetitive? Let's see how many grad students we can pump out to say cohomology. But how about coality? Didn't see that one coming, did you? I encapsulated that whole linguistic structure. And we just move on. Off into the distance. But yeah, I have no idea how you would compete when you guys don't even know what anything is. So that's kind of difficult. But it is what it is, and that's neither you guys already lose. Give me my money. What is a statement to a declaration? What is a declaration to an assertion? Is compassion empathetic? Is change challenging? Is a ledge a challenge? Is a charge a challenge? Catching cases, catching charges like Professor Carroll. He's going to catch a lot of charges if the law ever makes any sense, which apparently it still doesn't because there are no laws. But happy 250th anniversary to the United States. We declared independence in this great land, home of the free, justice and liberty for all, screeching bald eagles. Nobody gives a shit. Sensorality is a large ledge. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is big large? Is grand large? Is tall large? What is a tax to a lien? What is a license to a tax? Sensorality senses license. What is decision to liability? Is liability a choice? What is voice to choice? What is intention to potential? Another thing on capacity to potential, conceptually is one of those ones that effectively means the same thing, but capacity has more syllables than potential, and potential has 3, and capacity has 4. Capacity, potential. So this overall numeric limitation of syllability is always present, but we just have to get our concepts in the right order, and it's trivial. But sometimes it's worth pointing out. So now this was kind of a big conceptual progress, and then linguistically it's important for a reason, which we'll say here in a second. But the fundamental theorem of emotion, unexpected behavior is special. And so it didn't start with, we started with a word that isn't sensorality or speciality. We had unexpected. It's worth pointing out because this whole process is differentiation. And so now, and we're not starting with this general form. And so it's hard to appreciate that. It's important, but it is. But it's true, right? Unexpected behavior is special. What is speciality? Worth refreshing where this word came from. Again, I have this attenuation to language, and then we wrote this paper, and then I had this axiom, infinite uniqueness. And then conceptually, we refined again from this overall general thing, what is infinite uniqueness? That's already specifically defined as specialness, speciality. And I messed the speciality, the pronunciation doesn't really matter. Or like the syllability kind of sounded weird there. But again, all of my presentation probably sounds like a rhythmy kind of, like has cadence, but I didn't mean to emphasize special in a special way there. But point being is we go from this conceptualization, what is infinite uniqueness? What do you mean? Well, I literally mean what does people mean by special? And then we reduce all of this linguistics to a direct statement, which again, I can just Google it, but we're almost done with it again for sensorality of, again, this form of logic, this form of language where we derive what speciality is from an emotional, the complete emotional domain, which is the total range of logic, natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. I forget the actual chronology, but I think the fundamental physical definition came first. Again, infinite uniqueness to what is special, to the direct literal statement of speciality is special with an ITY. The total emotional definition, the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism, like we just said. And then that kind of gets chopped down to, and we've progressed the fundamental motion part, right? Emotion to motion, the fundamental physical part, infinite uniqueness, endless differentiation. And so now, right, overall, the tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism, right? What is this context? I'm just refreshing again the working definitions. Again, this is an axiomatic definition. And so again, this is chronologically the only complete proof ever demonstrated, encapsulating the complete conceptual progress that could be represented with language for the whole species. So that's our conceptual basis, is speciality, and then linguistics. And so, but again, just emphasizing unexpected behavior is special. It's kind of hard to appreciate, but the linguistics not starting with speciality or sensorality is important right here, as well as it's immediately true, right? If you're doing unexpected behavior, kind of like, what is this person doing? That is what specialness is. You're differentiating. And then for sexual antagonism, prepositional phrase, but you're differentiating. It's unexpected, right? It's different. And so it's conceptually consistent, and it produces, again, it's worth emphasizing again, unexpected. Special is unexpected behavior. Unexpected behavior is special. Sensorality expects, because again, we have to use this linguistic word form to show this fundamental differentiation. This is a word, this is not a word, and this is how words have already worked, and this is the world you already live in. But yeah, there's some amount of completable syllability. Sensorality is expectationality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Expected behavior is customary. Sensorality is customs. Like hey, I'm shipping something, it's going through customs. Sensorality is a custom. What is a custom to a costume? Emphasizing the direct iteration of the vowel structure, U and O, custom, costume. Is a costume a disguise? Customary is traditional. Sensorality is traditionality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is addition traditional? Direct iteration. Additional is special. Natural definition, direct iteration. Right? Addition is special, but right, a +1, but just conceptually, right? Additionally, I would like this. In addition, I would like this. You want something special. You want one more, right? And so additional is special. Natural definition, direct iteration. Specialization is customization. Sensorality is a custom cursor. Sensorality curates. And some of these steps might feel random, but again, we're just getting the overall, this general relativity of where syllability is assigned meaning. We just have to work through all this logic to this finalized definition. Sensorality is an additional theme. Sensorality is a special theme. What is the theme of behavior? Sensorality behaves, add a space, sensorality halves in direct iteration. What is having to halving? Dividing is halving. Again, another one of these things where all of these steps is just about relating the concepts, but it would probably make more sense to say halving, and then emphasizing again that progression. I have something, I'm in possession something, HAVE, to I cut something in half. But if you divide something, right, you can divide it into thirds or to fourths or to fifths. But if you half something, you're always dividing, but you're dividing, it doesn't have to be into a half. It doesn't really matter, but again, I'm emphasizing my own realization process where it's like, I immediately appreciate the uniqueness of this. Dividing is halving doesn't really make that much sense, but halving is dividing is correct, or is not completely unique. Just pointing out my own realization process because I'm not sure like what exactly I'm doing, like why some of these concepts present backwards. But then again, it's like the greater population, when you say you have dyslexia, it's like nobody, like it's just like this awareness of like how words form. And so again, just pointing out anything that I can throughout this realization process. Sensorality is even division. Is even easy. Fairness is evenly divided. Evenly divided is easily divided. Right? When you say that's easily divided, or again, you get what I'm saying, you can feel it. I'm trying to moving along. Cursoring is censoring. Sensorality limits unexpected behavior. Sensorality expects censorship. What is expectation to sensation? This is kind of a fundamental theorem. We'll say fundamental theorem of physics, but I would like it to be a little more refined. But this is either physics or logic, right? And so now, again, we went from steps contain sets, but what is a rhythm, right? Well, it maximizes motion, it maximizes momentum, and it does. But when you physically form a rhythm, if you try to sit down and do anything, mail a bunch of letters, write the same sentence over and over again, and you say, hey, I want to get this done as fast as possible, I want to get this done as efficiently as possible, you're going to form a rhythm. What do you do? Right? A rhythm minimizes steps. So that's a complete, like, you might not appreciate it, but that's completely contained within this derivation, and it's a fundamental physical definition completely appreciated right now. Right? Anytime you do anything, anytime you form a rhythm, what you are doing uniquely and explicitly is minimizing steps. Gus would agree. And then you go out and you go walk around. How many steps did we go on? Oh, we got 10,000 steps. And so we're almost done. Hopefully we don't go into Barco's mode. But that is a rigorous physical definition of what a rhythm is right now, and it's true and it's correct. So, fundamental theorem of physics, rhythm limits steps, right? And it's generalized linguistically and conceptually, whether you are running around outside or whether you're packaging up your envelopes. Again, just trying to use any examples that come to mind, but you're limiting steps. That is what a rhythm is. Rhythm sets pace. What is rhythm to anthem? Are anthems themes? Direct iteration. Judgment criticizes behavior. Is censorship judgment? Sensorality is no judgment, emphasizing its consensus. Again, when people say no judgment, that like complete conceptual usage. Natural definition, direct iteration. Judgment is assessment. What is assessment to assignment? Sensorality assigns judgment. Sensorality is persuasionality. And worth pointing out, to put myself on blast a little bit, I kid you not, I spelled this with a W. Like you can literally see in my handwriting this little error. Because it's just one of these things where it's like you go through this derivation. I do this rapidly. It's not like I like spelling checks. But we're at a point where it's like we are deriving spelling. And so I was like, persuasions. Like, what in the world do I put there? And so I'll spell it correctly on the screen, but I did have a little, I started writing a W and I was like, there's a 0% chance this is correct. But I want to include, again, every bit of realization. And so sensorality is persuasionality. Is pressure persuasive? Is invasive persuasive? What is persuasion to pursuit? Is a lawsuit a pursuit? Sensorality pursues law. Sensorality is pursuant. Pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution, and pursuant to the Fifth Amendment, and pursuant to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, my life quality is 0. I am in a jurisdiction which my constitutional rights are violated so profoundly, directly, egregiously, in an organized fashion, done by a variety of different independent people. I am seeking asylum because I do not have a way to live life. I do not have a way to sustain basic biological function. I do not live in an environment, not in my immediate environment, not in my overall community, not in a country, and certainly not in a species where anyone can care. Right? Sensorality limits unexpected behavior. You guys are like 14-year-olds that don't know how to behave. I have literally been saying the same exact thing at every moment in my life, and nobody can care. Now, they don't want to, it's they can't. There was no maturity, there's no morality, there was no nothing. There were just people reacting to social structures, and everyone's just a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off. It's ruined my life, it's ruined my health, it's ruined my property. It's continued to do so, and my quality of life is 0, goose egg, nothing. I cannot eat properly, I cannot sleep properly, and I cannot work. So I continue to ask for a little bit of money to do those things, eat properly, sleep properly, and work. I don't know how many times I keep saying this, again, to my estate, every charge, every case, and prioritize, again, people within the United States of America. Because all I've asked for, again, is a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. And again, I absorb and I can't function. It's not some movie for me. This isn't Disclosure Day movie time. This is my natural state of existence. And when you're around people that are not mature and just people don't respect the law, you literally can't function. And nobody cares. It's not your life. Why would you care? But again, history is going to remember you guys as just like the most disgusting failure of fucking everything that could possibly exist. That is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.